What's the cleanest path to come to the United States if I'm not in love? Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States out of our offices in St. Louis, San Diego, and Washington, D.C. We get this question a lot. We spend a lot of time in all of our videos and in our call-in show answering questions related to marriage-based or fiancé-based adjustment of status cases or immigrant visa cases. In this video, we're going to talk about something different. The question that we get so very often is, how can I come to the United States and build a life there? So we're talking about people who are overseas, who want to come to the United States and to start building the ladder towards U.S. citizenship or towards lawful permanent resident status. And it's a pretty narrow path. It's a pretty steep ladder. So I want to make sure that you understand sort of the big picture and what it's going to take for this to happen. And because I've been asked this question so many times, I've thought about it a lot. And here's where I land. If I'm a young person, say 20 to 25 years old, and I'm living overseas and I want to come to the United States, I've seen the movies, I've watched the television shows, I've seen Grey's Anatomy and I want to live in Seattle, or I watched 911 and I want to live in LA, whatever it is that makes you want to come to the United States, the question then is, how can I do it? How can I realistically try to come to the United States and start on the immigration path? And where I've landed is the F1 visa. The F1 visa is the best way to start building a life in the United States. And so an F1 visa is for people who are coming to the United States, usually for university or college studies. So I would spend a lot of time thinking about, where do I want to live? Because you want to go to a university near where you want to live. Now, you might need to take some English classes first, and you could start there. But at the end of the day, where you graduate from is going to have a severe impact on whether or not you can stay and where you stay. Because let's say you move to Albany, New York, and you want to live in Albany. You like the idea of upstate New York. You might not have ever been there, but you think that would be a nice place to live. Well, you want to pick a university near Albany, New York, and you want to make sure that you're going to be able to complete the 4-year degree. And that's where the immigration piece really comes in, because the F1 is relatively the easy part. If you have the academic credentials, if you have the money to pay and support yourself to go to school, then when you're done, you're going to be able to obtain something called optional practical training. Optional practical training, or OPT, is a program that allows international students to remain in the United States after they've graduated and to spend a year working in their field of study. So let's say you came to Albany, you got your 4-year degree in social work, and then you would have a year to work as a social worker, probably around Albany, most likely. You might be able to find a job somewhere else in the country, but because OPT requires you to work in your field, you'd be wanting to work as a social worker, and you'd want to have a conversation with the employer about the possibility of sponsoring you for an H-1B visa, because at the end of your OPT, you're going to need a way to stay in the United States. Now, let's say that instead of social work, you had picked computer science. If you went to school in Albany and got a degree in computer science, you could do OPT for that 1 year just like the social worker, but because you'd be in a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, or math, you would be able to extend your OPT for 2 more years. This is important for a couple of reasons. One is you're going to have not just one chance to get selected in the H-1B lottery, you're going to have 3. You're also going to have a much greater chance to earn some money, and you're going to have a chance to make an impression on an employer to make them want to try and sponsor you for an H-1B. So going back to the start of your F1 studies, you really need to think about, what's going to put me in the best position to stay in the United States long term. Well, picking a STEM major instead of a marketing degree or a business degree is really going to set you up for greater success down the line. And you really need to be this strategic. I was just having coffee with a friend, and I was explaining it to him that international students need to start thinking about these kinds of things either right before they come to the United States or shortly after arriving. You need to have your eyes on the prize. You need to be thinking about what's next after the F1 and after the OPT, and the answer to that question is the H-1B. The H-1B visa is a visa that's available for people who work in a specialty occupation. The easiest way to get an H-1B is to be a computer science major and to get your degree in computer science, to do your OPT for 3 years, and then each year your employer can try to sponsor you for that H-1B. If you get selected in the lottery, then you're going to be able to work for up to 6 years in H-1B status. But of course, we're always thinking about what's next. We're always thinking about our next option. And this is another thing that you want to talk to the employer about. Yeah, it's great to have them work at the company in OPT. And yeah, it's great if they sponsor you for an H-1B. But the real ticket is lawful permanent resident status. And you see what I mean when I talk about moving up that ladder? You're going from F1 to OPT F1 to H-1B. And then the next rung up the ladder is the green card. And so you could, if the employer likes you enough, they could sponsor you for a green card if they're having a hard time finding people in your line of work to work for them, that there aren't any Americans or lawful permanent residents who have your skill set or can do your job. They can sponsor you for a green card. So if the employer sponsors you for a green card, that's going to take a year or two. But at the end of the day, you're going to be a lawful permanent resident. And the last step after that, of course, is citizenship. So there is an actual path for people to come to the United States outside of marriage, outside of fiancés, and outside of love. You can get an employer to sponsor you after you complete your OPT and you're on H-1B. And I know this sounds like a daunting task. I know this sounds really hard, but we see it every year, every day. We handle cases just like this. We don't do the F1 piece because that's all done between you and the university, but the H-1Bs, we've certainly seen international students get sponsorship for H-1Bs after successfully completing OPT, and then we've seen those people get green cards later on down the line. If you find the right employer and you have the right skill set and you make yourself invaluable, this is the path to come to the United States and to stay and to set yourself up for success as a U.S. citizen. I hope this makes sense. I hope you found it energizing, and I hope that if you're thinking about this, this is the video for you. This is the path. There are a few other paths that we talk about in other videos, like our diversity visa lottery videos and the asylum videos. Those are other paths, but this is the cleanest path that doesn't involve marriage, that is sort of set by your own pace, set by what you can pull off, set by how good of an student you are and how good of a worker you are when you get that OPT and you get that H-1B. I get fired up talking about this. I think it's a wonderful part of America. I think we should greatly expand the H-1B program, and I think we should make it much easier for employers to sponsor kick-ass international students for green cards, but I'm not in charge of the world. So until then, I'm just going to keep educating you on how to do it, how to come here, how to stay here, because that's what it's all about, staying here. You know, we have a free download that you can get if you go to our website on Staying Here. I lay out the exact path you need. And if you download that Staying Here ebook, you're going to find out all of my best tips and tricks on how to walk along the path that I just described. You can also always, if you have a case, if you find an employer who wants to sponsor you for an H-1B, we'd love to work with you and the employer. We have many meetings with employers and employees explaining to them exactly how it works. So if you find yourself in that kind of a situation, you should email us, info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. You can also call us at 314-961-8200. As far as free resources, we have tons of videos on this topic. We have our Immigration Answers show where I go live talking about issues related to employment and employment-based green cards and H-1B visas every single week. So find us on YouTube or in our Facebook group, which is called Immigrant Home. We'd love to help you there. And otherwise, we hope you found it helpful, and we'll see you next time.